Hello, my name is Ali Zakir. I'm a techno-functional consultant for AblyPro, and today we're going to be talking about field service, Salesforce Field Service. Um, this will be the first video in a series of videos that we'll be having, and today we'll be doing an overview of the features and the functionality of field service. So the agenda, obviously, we're going to talk about field service, what it does. Then we'll talk about the key users and the key players that use the system and how they interact with one another. Next, we'll go through the process, the workflow process of a typical organization. Then we'll talk about the dispatch console and some of the features that it has and the overall features that field service has. Then we'll talk about the specific field service application that the remote workers, field technicians use to service a particular account and appointment. Then we'll talk about the data model. So we just have an understanding of what that looks like. And then also we'll talk about the core objects and how they interact with one another. And finally, we'll do a demonstration. And so you have a feel of how everything fits together. So what is field service? So let me start with giving an example. Let's say you're a networking company, or maybe you're a manufacturer of conveyor belts. So obviously, you're going to have remote workers or field technicians that will be going out in the field, uh, doing installations, doing service, doing maintenance work. So, if you have a small, relatively small field, remote field workers, managing that might be easy. But once you get into maybe having 100 remote field technicians or 1,000 remote field technicians, that's where it becomes very complicated and very difficult. Especially if you're talking about different regions or different states or different countries, even. And then when you factor into that also different time zones and things of that nature. So, what field service is all about is managing that work, managing your remote operations, and making it more efficient. Um, so, the key players that we have, you have agents, you have dispatchers, and obviously you have your field technicians and how they work together um, kind of in a harmonious way to service accounts. The great thing about field service is really um, the optimization and the scheduling engine that it has. Um, you know, typically, you could do things manually, but what field service is all about is really using an optimization engine to make life easy for everyone and gain efficiencies with that. You can still do things manually, but with field service, you can automate a lot of things. And then the other powerful thing that field service has as a dedicated application for your remote field technicians. They can see their accounts, they can see the service appointments, they can see the work orders, they can see specifically what work needs to be done. They have access to knowledge and quite a few other things that will make life easy for them to service an account. Key users. So the key users would be a admin, service agent, dispatcher, and a field technician, obviously. So an admin, what their role is to configure the system per a company's needs. And then also maybe a developer would be involved also to configure the system for your particular needs. The next would be the service agent. So let's say you receive a call or you need to create a case for a customer. That's what the service agent would do. They would take all the pertinent information for the customer, exactly what needs to be done, what the problem may be, and things of that nature. Then they would create a work order, and that work order ultimately will become a service appointment so that the field technician can go out into the field and take care of that problem, issue, and things of that nature. Dispatcher, This is the person that takes care of the day-to-day operations. So they have an overall view of what's happening that day, the next day, and things of that nature. Making sure that the correct person is doing the work at the correct place at the certain time, making sure that a field technician has the parts that they need, they have the skills that they need. If there's any issues that might arise, taking care of those issues. So they're managing the remote field technicians. And then you also obviously you have the field technicians that are actually doing the work, who are performing the appointment in the field for your customers. The work order flow. So, you would have a case. Typically from a case, you would create a work order. The work order would have all the necessary information that you would need. What type of service it'll be? Are there any skills that are needed? Are there any parts that are required? So that work order will have all the information that's needed to service that appointment. Ultimately, from the work order, then the service appointment would be created. And then step number 4, the service appointment is actually scheduled with a field technician. That would be for a particular date and a time. Then obviously the field technician would go out there, perform the work, complete the work. Once they've completed the work, typically a service report would be generated, and this is where the customer would sign off on that service, and they would get a copy of it, as well as the company would get a copy of that, so that we know that the service appointment has been completed and completed correctly. Next, we're going to talk about the dispatcher console. So on the left-hand side here, you can see like the screen of what a typical GAN view would be, and the GAN view is within the dispatcher console. So as you can see there, we have a view of the different technicians, and on the right of that, you can see their respective service appointments and things of that nature. And we'll have a look at this later on when we're looking at the demo. So what the dispatcher console is all about is managing the field technicians the day of the service, and ensuring that the right job is assigned to the correct technician. And typically, if you're using the optimization engine, the optimization engine is taking care of scheduling it for you. However, if you have a technician that's not available that day, they're sick or whatever the case may be, then it would be the dispatcher's responsibility to either manually take care of it or utilize an in-day optimization to rearrange the appointments accordingly. Also, you have, if a service appointment is taking longer than expected, and that's rolling into the next scheduled service appointment, then the dispatcher would be alerted to that problem, and then the dispatcher can handle that problem. You can also, from here, from the dispatcher console, look at a map view, see where a field technician is at any time, see where the next service appointment is scheduled, look at real-time traffic. So there's a lot of information within the dispatcher console that empowers the dispatcher to really manage the remote field technicians. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the dedicated field service mobile app. So this has a lot of features in it. Once again, it's a dedicated application. It's offline first capabilities. And what that means is, let's say a technician is somewhere where they don't have internet reception. They're in a warehouse or they're in the basement or something of that nature. If they don't have internet connection, they have all the information already primed or stored in the app on their device, so that they can service that service appointment that's needed. Manage service appointments, create and update records. They get push notifications, alerts if things are changing, or the dispatcher needs to contact them and give them updates, and vice versa also. So, you have this chatter feature where, the dispatcher as well as the service technician, they can have a two-way communication and keep up to date. You have inventory management also here. So you know what you have. If you're using any parts, it keeps everything up to date. You have geolocation tracking so that you know exactly where your field technician is at any given time. Um, one of the powerful features that the system has is a Salesforce knowledge. So for that particular service appointment, if they need any specific information, they have it at their fingertips. They can look it up so that they can service that service appointment correctly and quickly also. There's also something called a visual remote assistant, which is a video. So let's say um, they need some assistance. You can do a live video with another remote technician in the office, let's say, and the two of them can work together to resolve um, the issue and complete that service appointment. And then obviously the application can generate a service report which the customer can sign on the device. They'll get a copy as well as the company will get a copy of that also. So let's talk about a little bit about the field service data model. So the central thing that we have here is the service appointment. So the service appointment, and this is just a few of the objects that we have here. So, but the central item that we're looking here is the service appointment, and then that's connected to your standard Salesforce objects like work order line item, accounts, leads, and things of that nature. You got your defined service territories that you would have, as well as your work types. So this is just an overview of some of the objects. If we look at another screen here, it's basically the same data model, except here we've got a lot more objects that we're talking about. You've still got the central core object, which is the service appointment, which is connected to your work order line items, accounts, asset, leads, and opportunities. But also what we have here is the service territories that we've set up. You've got your operating hours, the members that you would have within a service territory. So, you could have 100 technicians, but maybe 10 of those technicians are in one territory, 10 are in another area, and things of that nature. Also, an important part in the model is skills and required skills. So, for a particular service appointment, if certain skills are required, those skills are directly connected to your service resource, to your field technician, and also they're graded from 1 to 99. So you have, if a particular service appointment requires a certain level of skill, you assign the correct service resource that has the minimal skill level to be able to perform that work. So there's quite a few objects here, which we're not going to get into detail, but that's just an overview of what the model looks like. So what are some of the core objects that we have? One of the main ones, obviously, is a work order. It's a collection of information for the repair itself, maintenance activities, and other service requests that are required on the visit. So this is just everything that is needed: the skills, the parts, the location, obviously the account, and things like that. One thing that you can utilize is a work type. And a work type is just a template for your work order creation. So if you're doing the same type of work again and again and again, rather than creating a work order from scratch, you would utilize a work type, which is a template. So all the information is already in there: how long the service appointment should take, what parts are required, what skills are needed. And once you have that work type, you would just select that work type and it would generate the work order for you. Next is service territories. So if you're in a large area, or any area, matter of fact, but if you want your territories broken down in terms of, you have your resources, your field technicians in one area and your technicians in another area, you can just break them down by territories. That could be by north and south of a city, that could be state, that could be by time zone, it could be country. It's just a way of defining your territories how you want to service your accounts, and then assigning technicians to those areas. And then also it's a way of your dispatches, um, assigning your dispatches for those territories also so that they can manage them. And as we spoke before, we have skills. So you can, have required skills for a particular job, for a service appointment. So you can define those skills, and those tie in to your work order and your work types. The next one is service appointments. And this is the actual appointment when the field technician goes out into the field. And that's directly related to the work order. So once you have the work order, then you would have the service appointment. And that would actually include the date and the time when that service appointment is going to be performed. Service resource, all that is the actual field technician that's going to be performing the work. And then you have operating hours. And operating hours is when you, let's say 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, when you're performing the work, when you're available to perform the work. That's all that is. And then moving on. Field Service mobile app. As I said, this is a dedicated application, and it has a number of key features in here. Once again, it's a dedicated application. You can manage the appointments. You can view your appointments for the entire day. It'll allow you to see where your field technician is at any given time, real time. It allows you to communicate with your dispatchers and the customer also, and with the field technician. You can view knowledge that's relevant to the service appointment that you have. And then once again, you can create a service report. And really, the power of this is just, it makes the entire operation efficient. So your field technicians are just more productive. They have everything that they need to service that service appointment and complete it as soon as possible so that they can go to the next service appointment and just be efficient in how they do things. Moving on. Now we're going to just show a demonstration of field service. Okay, so here we've jumped into Salesforce, and this instance already has field service managed package installed. So we're just going to go through some of the settings and some of the objects. So over here, we're going to type in field service. Now, if you look down here, you'll see field service. You have the mobile settings, and then you have the field service settings. So we're going to click on that. So the first time you're setting this up, what you want to do is actually enable field service here. I already have it enabled here. So the first thing you need to do is enable it. After you've enabled it, you will see all of these other settings that you have. Enable notifications for users, auto create service appointments after so many days. For example, here it's 3 days. You can allow integrations. Let's see what else we have. Knowledge search against work order fields and work order line items. So these are some of the key features here. So once you enabled it, you have this. If there's anything you need to change, you can change that, and then you'd click on save. So let's see. After you've done that, you'd want to install the managed package. And one way of just knowing after you've installed that, if you type in field service or field, you'll see two main applications. You'll see field service and you'll see field service admin. First, we're going to look at this field service mobile settings. These are the default settings in this org. So all of these settings here are some of the basic settings that you would have for the mobile device. So you can do things like brand color, feedback color. This is just how everything is presented on the mobile app. So these are just the colors, the contrast, and things of that nature. And then here, if you have any flows that you would install or you would need for your for the application, you would create the flows and you would associate them here for the application, for the mobile application. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go to the field service admin. So field service admin, that's here. I actually already have it here if I'm not mistaken. So this is field service admin. What we want to do is click on field service settings, and you have getting started. First thing we're going to look at is the guided setup. So field service has a lot of settings. We won't be covering all of them. There's too many to cover. We're just going to cover some of the main key areas within field service. We're not going to talk about scheduling policies, service objectives, and work rules. That'll be a separate video. That'll be more detailed. So right now what we have service territory. So I've set up two of them. One is Dallas and the other is Houston. If you wanted to create another one, you could create another one here. And this is once again just very basic setting up the field service org. So now I'm just going to go back, and then this is your service resources, your field technicians. I have a limited org here with not many licenses. So right now I only have one remote field technician, Tom Hicks. And you can see right here, he's associated with the Dallas service territory. And in terms of licenses, he's got the dispatch console as well as the mobile app license. So license and permissions here. So if you had more field technicians, you would just add them here. This is one way of doing it. There's different ways of doing it, but this is just doing it via the guided setup. Work types. This is just a basic way of just listing out and creating your initial work types. There's other ways of doing this. This is just, once again, using the guided setup. And then you have your operating hours here. So what I'm going to do is, let's look at operating hours. So by default, you have the base calendar installed with the managed package. What we have here is I've created this Dallas one. So for Dallas, I've specified the time zone that Dallas would be in. And here you can see we've got a few hours, operating hours defined here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, if I wanted to complete the week, we can just say copy to next day, copy to next day. So that's Monday to Friday. What I can also do is for Saturday is say 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, but maybe we want to extend it to, let's say, 8 o'clock. But then those are not normal hours. Those would be extended hours. So extended hours would be basically overtime. So that's a way of just designating, okay, these are not normal operating hours. These are weekend hours. And maybe, with your company, as it's, on the weekend, you would charge a different rate for servicing your customers on the weekends. So we can just save that. So if you come back here, what you would typically have is multiple operating hours. If you're in an expanded area, maybe across different time zones, or even if you're in the same time zone, if you're on the East Coast and you want to define it by states and things of that nature. So you can define your territories any way it makes sense for your business. Going on to the next tab, we have work types. We saw that previously in the guided setup. So let's pick one of these here that are already defined. So we have just what we're calling our work type here. And this is how long typically it should take to do this type of a service. So here we're saying 60 minutes. We have it here. If we wanted to, We could change that and define that as hours or minutes, but we're just going to leave that as minutes. And if you want to associate that particular work type with a specific service report, and once again, a service report is at the end of the service appointment where the customer can sign off and say, okay, the work is being completed. So we can set up multiple work types, and all a work type is a template for you to create your work orders. So right here, we've got N195, groundwork, lay fiber, and then here we have another one, N595. And these are just like, for example, here, we select this one here. We're saying this service appointment is going to require 90 minutes to service this. And then also, if you look under related, you can say, to be able to do this, because this is an installation, we're going to need a required product. So here we're saying we need the N595. We need one of them. And in terms of skills to be able to do this job, the skill is going to be a commercial router, and the skill level is 50. So as long as the service technician has a skill level that's 50 or above, they'll be able to service this appointment or service a appointment. Moving on, we're going to look at service resources. So let's have a look. Right now, once again, limited licenses. So we only have one individual in here. So we'll look at Tom Hicks. So Tom Hicks is in here. He's a technician. Capacity based. If this was enabled, this would typically be for a contractor where we're tracking their hours. They're not a full-time employee per se. They're only available, let's say, 20 hours a week. So that's where there was a capacity base. So you would just check that off and then define how many hours they can work during a period. There we have this checked off, so they're an active user, so we can utilize them. They can be scheduled. And then here is they can also be included when the optimizer runs, and the different types of optimization that the system has. As this is checked, they would be included in that to be included in the optimization when that's run. If we look at the related tab, we can see that this individual has 2 service appointments currently scheduled for them. And then also, if we look at the skills, we can see they've got commercial router skill. Their level is an 80. Residential router, their skill is a 99. Fiber, their skill is an 80. So this is for this particular service technician, Tom Hicks. And if you look further down, service territories. So this is a service territory member. You can see here, Tom Hicks is part of the Dallas service territory. This is the primary. If you needed to add them to another service territory, that would be the secondary service territory. All right. We're not going to talk about scheduling policies and work rules right now. That would be a different video that gets a bit more involved and detailed. So what we're going to do is jump. Actually, I have this tab open here. But this is the field service application. So if we click on this main tab here, field service, this is the view that the dispatcher would have a view of typically when they're working here. So this main view here, or the view on the right-hand side, would be the GAN view. And as you can see here, we have Tom Hicks. He's a field tech. He has one service appointment here. He has another service appointment here. And if you can notice here, there's this line here, this red line, and that's telling us what the current time is. So both of these appointments have just been scheduled. They haven't been dispatched. So if you want to actually dispatch it to the technician, you can right click on it. There's multiple ways of doing this, but you can right click on it and you can change the status to dispatch. So what'll happen in a few seconds, it'll turn to blue. There you go. And then you can see these lines at the travel time, so it'll tell you how long it'll take him to travel to that appointment. And if you just hover over here, you can see some pertinent information for that. So you can see here the travel time to service appointment is 21 minutes. Travel from is 40 minutes. Then you can see also the address, the earliest start time, date and time, and things of that nature. And over here, you can see that they have a scheduled break. So what we can actually do is, let's see. If you click on their name, you can see what their day looks like, how they're being utilized, and things of that nature. So they've only, in terms of service appointments and travel time, it's 2 hours and 30 minutes. The average travel time is 40 minutes. They don't have any violations. There's nothing in jeopardy. So if you click on map, you can actually see where their home base is. In other words, either it's for them for their house or from their home office, could be a warehouse. And it tells you where the first service appointment is at 9 o'clock, what route they could take. And then if you come up here, you can see the second service appointment, the route that they would typically drive, what time that service appointment is also. And if you wanted to, you can click on traffic and you can see live traffic and things of that nature. So what this does is basically gives the dispatcher a view of what's happening out in the field, and you know where your technician is and things. And then also, aside from the map view, you have the appointments listed here. I just close out of here. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually add another appointment to the GAN. So let's see which one we want to add. There's a number of ways you can do it. You can just drag the service appointment onto the Gantt, or what you can do is candidate. What candidate will do actually is, typically you'd have more field technicians here, so it will give you a grade. So as we only have one field technician, is saying the grading here is 91 out of 100, so that's a high score. But if you had different technicians on here, maybe 10, it would it'll give you the same number for different individuals and give it a score. And then it would be up to the dispatcher to decide, okay, where do they want to put that service appointment? So here you can just click on assign recommended. I'm going to hide that, and I'm going to actually look at this one here. We can do the same thing again. And it's because you only have one field technician, this is wide open. It's giving you a 91. And you have 5 options here, actually, if you can see here, if you click on it. So obviously it would make sense to go with the 91% here. So you can just click on here and schedule here. Give it a few seconds. And it'll change colors. And there you go, it's been scheduled. And what you can do here, if you want to actually dispatch it, you can change the status. You can or you can cancel it. You can dispatch it. Yeah, it just depends what makes sense. So now, actually, if we go back to the map, before we only had 2 service appointments showing up. What we should have now is actually 3 appointments. So here is the new appointment here. So let's just zoom in a little bit. And you can see the service appointment here, scheduled for 1:55. There it is. And you can see the relevant information you can get for that service appointment. You can see the address, when it's scheduled to end, and things of that nature. So there's a lot going on in the GAN view. I'm not going to go into all the details that are here, but there's quite a bit that we have here. Once again, typically you'd have, right now I only have one available service appointment. What we can do is, let's go to work order and let's create a new work order. Either you can do it this way, or typically maybe it would be created via a case. So what we're going to do is we're going to select a work type. So groundwork, lay fiber, it's new. We don't have a permanent record. We're going to just select a account, what this is associated for the customer. We're going to select somebody here. Up here, we're saying that this work is going to be performed in the Dallas territory. And we're just going to put an address in here. So I don't know what would be a good address. Type something in here. So once again, this is basically very out of the box. You can have more fields if needed when you're creating your work orders and your work types. So I'm just going to click on save. So now if you go back to the field service and we look at the Gantt view, we should see a additional appointment. So this is the one that we just created. Actually, this is the one that we created before. So we're just going to delete that. Just going to cancel that one there. Give that a minute to refresh. Once you've canceled it, it typically goes back and you can address it accordingly in terms of what you need to do. So this is the one that we canceled here. So once again, this is just a very high level list. Multiple things that you can do here from a dispatcher's perspective. You can look at a map of your territory. You can overlay it with traffic and just generally see what's going on. Like right here, this is the home base for the territory. You have different scheduling policies here. Default, what we have here is customers first. You can have defined emergency. An emergency would be, let's say, you had bad weather situation, flooding and things of that nature. So you can select that policy, and how your field technicians are scheduled would be very differently from your customer first scheduling policy. And that'll be a separate video. But you can have multiple policies depending upon what's needed at any given time if things change during the day. So yeah. We're going to come back here to the field service admin, and we're going to look at field service settings. So what we looked at initially was the guided setup. And under guided setup, you have the scheduling policies that we were just talking about. We can change them. And then service objectives and work rules, those two work hand in hand together to define your scheduling policies. And we already talked about these other items here. But field service has a lot of settings. So we're just going to go through them and kind of highlight the things that you have. Service appointment lifecycle. So every company will have different workflow or service appointment flow. This is what we have out of box with field service. So, a service appointment would have no status whatsoever. Then you can schedule it. Then it can be dispatched. And depending upon if it's dispatched, it can be in progress or it can be canceled. If it's in progress, it can either be completed or it cannot be completed. So what you can do is, depending upon a company scenarios, you can totally modify your workflow for your needs. Let's see what else we have here. We want to talk about that. Scheduling. So we have different scheduling policies and how you do your routing. And you have street level routing, you have point-to-point predictive routing, how you calculate that, travel times and things of that nature. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot of settings within field service. If you want to modify the dispatcher console, once again, you can, like for example here, again, when does the week start? By default, starting on a Monday. What is your default scheduling policy? Customer first. You can change that to whatever you might need. Time zones that show the user time zones or territories time zones. So there's just a lot of settings in here that you can, for the purpose of this video, we don't have the time to go through all of these. Let's see, optimization. Let's click on that. So optimization is a big thing because field service has a number of ways of doing optimization. You have global optimization, which is overnight. You have in-day optimization. You have resource optimization. So they work differently, and you would use them at different times. Once again, you have something that field service calls recipes. There are things that like fix overlap, emergency overlap, um, depending upon your scenario and what you need and how you want to handle your scheduling. Um, you can customize certain things. So that's an overview of field service, Lightning. And in subsequent videos, we'll take a deeper dive into certain areas and really get into some detail. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it's been useful for you to get an overall understanding of Salesforce Field Service Lightning. Thanks once again for watching. Here's our contact information. Follow us on social media, and obviously you can phone us and you can email us. Thanks again and have a good day. Bye.